They say time heals all wounds, but some betrayals cut so deep they redefine your entire existence. I'm Margaret, born in 1945 in Melbourne. Back in 1971, when I was just 26, I received that dreaded telegram that would shape the next 47 years of my life. I felt my world crumble, but then something happened that would test every fiber of my being. Today, at 78, sitting in my kitchen where it all unraveled, I'm finally sharing this because silence nearly destroyed me, and truth became my salvation. The morning started like any other Tuesday in March 1971. I was feeding our 2-year-old Emma her porridge while 3-year-old Oliver played with his toy soldiers on the kitchen floor. The knock came sharp and official, 3 precise raps that seemed to echo through our small brick home in Footscray. Through the frosted glass, I could see the silhouette of a uniformed man, and my heart immediately knew what my mind refused to accept. "Mrs. Margaret Thornton?" the officer asked, his voice carrying that practiced gentleness reserved for delivering life-altering news. I nodded, unable to speak, clutching Emma tighter against my chest. "I regret to inform you that your husband, Sergeant James Thornton, was killed in action in Vietnam on March 15, 1971. The world tilted sideways. James, my James with his crooked smile and gentle hands, was gone. The officer handed me an envelope containing his death certificate, dog tags, and a small wooden box. "His remains," he said softly. "I'm sorry for your loss, ma'am. For 47 years, that box sat on my mantelpiece like a shrine. I spoke to it every morning, telling James about the children's achievements, my struggles, my loneliness. Oliver grew into a successful businessman, though he always seemed distant, urging me to move on and stop living in the past. Emma became a teacher, more understanding but equally concerned about my attachment to what she called Dad's memory box. The house in Footscray became my fortress and my prison. I worked double shifts at the textile factory to pay the mortgage, scrimping and saving every penny. When the factory closed in 1985, I cleaned offices at night and took in sewing during the day. Every payment, every sacrifice, every sleepless night was for this house, the home James and I had dreamed of filling with laughter and love. My family treated me like a ghost haunting her own life. "Mom, you need to let go," Oliver would say during his rare visits, his eyes always calculating, always assessing. "Dad's been gone longer than you were married. This obsession isn't healthy." But how could I explain that James wasn't just my husband? He was my anchor, my purpose, my reason for continuing when everything felt impossible. The neighbors whispered, the church ladies pitied me. Even my own children seemed embarrassed by their mother who couldn't move on properly. But I held onto that box, onto his memory, onto the love that had sustained me through decades of loneliness. Then came March 15, 2018, exactly 47 years after that terrible telegram. It was Oliver's son Tommy's 16th birthday, and we were gathered in my living room for cake. The same living room where I'd received news of James's death, where I'd raised 2 children alone, where I'd cried myself to sleep countless nights. On the old sofa, Emma was cutting the cake when the doorbell rang. "I'll get it," I said, expecting perhaps a neighbor or a delivery. But when I opened that door, my legs nearly gave way beneath me. Standing there, older and grayer but unmistakably real, was James. My James, the man whose ashes I'd been talking to for nearly 5 decades. "Hello, Maggie," he said, using the nickname only he had ever called me. His voice was rougher now, weathered by time, but it was him. "I know this is a shock." The box of ashes crashed to the floor as my hands flew to my mouth. Behind me, I heard Emma gasp and Oliver's sharp intake of breath. Tommy's birthday party froze in a tableau of disbelief. "You're dead," I whispered, the words feeling absurd even as I spoke them. "I have your death certificate. I've been carrying your ashes for 47 years. James stepped inside without invitation, his eyes scanning the home he'd abandoned. "We need to talk, Maggie, about the house, about what's rightfully mine." His tone was businesslike, cold, nothing like the warm, loving men I'd married. "I've been living in Texas, built quite a successful trucking business, got a new family now, a wife, 2 kids. But this house, well, legally, I'm entitled to half." The room spun around me. This wasn't a joyful reunion or a miraculous return from the dead. This was something else entirely. Something that felt like a knife twisting in a wound I thought had finally healed. How? Was all I could manage to ask. David Miller helped me, James said matter-of-factly, referring to his old army buddy. I needed a fresh start. Vietnam was complicated. Easier to be dead than deal with the consequences. He looked around the room with appraising eyes. Nice place you've got here. Must be worth a fair bit now. As the initial shock began to wear off, a terrible realization crept over me. This wasn't about love or regret or wanting his family back. This was about money, about the house I'd sacrificed everything to keep, about the life I'd built from the ashes of his supposed death. The weeks following James's return felt like living in a nightmare where the dead walk among us with lawyers' business cards. He'd taken up residence in a nearby motel, visiting daily, with documents and demands, treating my home like a property he was evaluating for purchase. But the real betrayal was yet to reveal itself, and when it did, it would shake me to my very core. Mum, maybe Dad has a point, Oliver said during one of our tense family meetings. You're getting older. This house is too big for you. Maybe it's time to consider assisted living. His words felt rehearsed, too smooth, and something cold settled in my stomach. I could help you find a nice place, somewhere with proper care. Emma shot her brother a sharp look. Oliver, what's wrong with you? Mum's perfectly capable of living independently. But I caught the glance that passed between Oliver and his father, a look of understanding that excluded me entirely. It was Emma who uncovered the truth. My daughter had always been the observant one, the one who noticed details others missed. She'd been staying with me more often since James's return, claiming she wanted to help me process everything. But really, she was watching, listening, protecting me in ways I didn't yet understand. Mum, Emma said one evening, her voice trembling with rage, I need to show you something. She pulled out her phone, her hands shaking as she scrolled through recordings. I've been documenting everything. The conversations, the phone calls, the meetings they thought you couldn't hear. The first recording was Oliver's voice, clear and unmistakable. Dad, she's more confused than ever since you showed up. This is our chance. If we can get her declared incompetent, we can sell the house and split everything. The assisted living story will work. I've already found a place that'll back up our claims about her mental state. My heart shattered into pieces smaller than dust. My own son, the boy I'd raised alone, worked 3 jobs to put me through university, sacrificed my youth and dreams was plotting against me with the man who'd abandoned us both. The second recording was James. Oliver, you've done good work keeping me informed all these years. Those monthly payments were worth every penny. Your mother never suspected you were in contact with me. Now we just need to move fast before she gets suspicious. All these years? I whispered, the full scope of their betrayal washing over me like ice water. How long has this been going on? Emma's eyes filled with tears. Since 1995, Mom. 23 years. Oliver's been taking money from Dad, reporting back about your finances, your health, everything. They've been planning this for decades. The room tilted again. But this time it wasn't shock, it was rage. Pure crystalline fury that burned away 47 years of grief and replaced it with something harder, stronger. They'd stolen my life, my truth, my right to make my own choices. But they'd underestimated the woman who'd survived their abandonment once before. What do we do? I asked Emma, my voice steadier than it had been in weeks. We fight back, she said, her jaw set with determination I recognized from my own mirror. I've already contacted a lawyer, Sarah Chen. She specializes in elder abuse and fraud. She says we have a strong case. The legal battle that followed was swift and merciless. Sarah Chen was a force of nature, a woman who understood that justice sometimes requires the sharpest of swords. Within days, she'd filed an emergency injunction freezing all of James's and Oliver's assets. The trucking company in Texas, Oliver's business accounts, even the motel room James was staying in, everything locked down tight. Your Honor, Sarah argued in court, her voice ringing with righteous indignation, This is a clear case of elder exploitation, fraud, and conspiracy. Mr. James Thornton faked his own death, abandoning his wife and children for 47 years while she struggled to survive. His son, Oliver Thornton, has been complicit in this deception for over 2 decades, taking payments in exchange for information about his mother's vulnerabilities. The evidence was overwhelming. Emma's recordings, bank records showing Oliver's mysterious monthly deposits, documentation of James's trucking business established in 1977, just 6 years after his supposed death. Even the ashes I'd cherished turned out to be nothing more than cremated wood chips, a final insult orchestrated by David Miller. James sat in the defendant's chair looking smaller than I remembered, his confident swagger replaced by the hunched shoulders of a man whose schemes had finally caught up with him. Oliver wouldn't meet my eyes, his face pale and drawn as the full weight of his betrayal played out in public record. The judge's verdict was swift and decisive. This court finds the defendants guilty of elder exploitation, fraud, and attempted unlawful transfer of property. Mrs. Margaret Thornton's sole ownership of the property is hereby restored and protected. Furthermore, she is awarded 70% of all marital and business assets as compensation for the decades of deception and financial manipulation she has endured. Walking out of that courthouse with Emma's arm linked through mine, I felt something I hadn't experienced in 47 years: complete freedom, not just from James's ghost, but from the prison of grief and loyalty I'd built around his memory. The ending came swiftly after that. James, stripped of his assets and facing criminal charges, ended up in a halfway house in Texas. His new family, learning the truth about his past, wanted nothing to do with him. He died alone 6 months later, truly dead this time. Though I felt nothing but emptiness at the news, Oliver was arrested for fraud and conspiracy. As they led him away in handcuffs, he finally looked at me, his eyes pleading for forgiveness I no longer had to give. "Mum, I'm sorry," he whispered, "but some betrayals cut too deep for apologies to heal." Emma and I rebuilt our relationship on a foundation of truth instead of shared grief. The house in Footscray became a home again, filled with her children's laughter and the sound of life moving forward. The empty box that had once held fake ashes sits in my fireplace now, not as a shrine, but as a reminder of the lies I once believed and the strength I found in breaking my silence. Today, I want you to remember that your voice has power. Your truth matters, and sometimes the people who should protect you are the ones you need protection from. If this story resonated with you, drop your location below and hit that like button. Subscribe for more stories of survival and strength, and share this with anyone who needs to hear that it's never too late to reclaim your life. Moral lesson: sometimes the greatest revenge is simply refusing to remain a victim, finding your voice, and choosing to live authentically despite those who tried to silence your truth forever.